Hey everyone, welcome to EduMatch. Follow along with us with the hashtag EduMatch on Twitter, and you can now watch us on YouTube Live as well as on Periscope. All right, so speaking of EduMatch, did you know that you could be the featured person of the day? Just check out our site at edumatch.org, click on Get Connected and Person of the Day form and fill it out. There's a little bit of a wait, but in the meantime, you'll be tagged with potential matches. And in addition, you will have your blog tweeted out to our network of over 25,000 educators around the world. So tonight we're going to be talking about building relationships with students. So just wanted to give a huge shout out to our moderator, Jeff Bradbury. And also we're going to have Dan Kreinich joining us in progress. We also have two fantastic panelists as of now. We have Dean Gainey and Tracy Brady. So in a second, we are going to, they are all going to introduce themselves. So I'm going to actually kick it over first to Dean. If you could please just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everybody, my name is Dean Gainey. I am a ELA teacher primarily in the state of Florida, Orlando, and I also teach technology and gifted students at a K-8 school here in the city of Beautiful, and certainly glad to be here tonight.
All right, awesome. So glad to have you. All right, next let's go to Tracy.
Hi, I am Tracy Brady, and I teach French and Spanish in New York State. So happy to be here.
All right, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Tracy. And Jeff, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Bradbury, the creator of TeacherCast.net. I'm also the K-12 instructional technology coach for Westwood Regional School District, and it is so exciting to be here with everybody here on EduMatch.
All right, awesome. We are super glad to have all of you here. So we have like some questions coming from you. So Dan is having a little bit of technical difficulty joining us, but we have some questions in the panel. So I will throw the first one out there, and I'm going to get on the chat in just a second. But the first question was, describe the teacher with whom you've had the greatest relationship when you were a student. So what teacher did you have the greatest relationship when you were a student, and why? So we'll just go starting first with Dean.
This is a really good question. The reason I am a teacher today, I have to say, is because of my first grade teacher, and her influence went long past first grade. I went back and helped her every year until I graduated high school. So she essentially taught me for 12 years, whether she knew it or not. And I think I could say many things as far as why she was the one that had the most impact on me, or I had the greatest relationship with. But I think the bottom line is that she cared, and there was no doubt in my mind that she cared in everything that she said, whether it was a little stern or not. She knew, I guess she knew more about me than I knew about myself at the time, but then I slowly began to see it for myself. And I think it attribute a lot of that to her and her influence and everything that she stood for.
Awesome. That's such a nice story. All right. Great, great. And Tracy, how about you?
The teacher who I had the greatest relationship with was definitely my sixth grade English teacher, Jane McCrowan. And I have actually for the last 2 years been trying desperately to track her down unsuccessfully. She was the teacher who put me in front of my very first computer. It was a TRS-80, which let you know a little bit how old I am. We used cassette tapes to record our data. Again, things have changed quite a lot since then. But it was the first time that I was really engaged in what I was doing at school. We were programming in BASIC, and it was just a small group of us. But up until that time, we, as a group of us, had been kind of the freaks. A lot of us were bullied, and this was really the first time that a teacher, instead of just segregating us and leaving us to our own devices, really challenged us and engaged us in the learning process. And that really made me want to become a teacher and change the entire trajectory of my life.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. That is fantastic. So I'm going to now turn it over to Jeff. So Jeff, I see that you just dropped a question in the chat. So please feel free to go with that.
Sure. This question actually comes from one of these questions that we ask on our podcast when we do our Jersey 5 questions. And it basically is, talk to us a little bit about your favorite teachable moment as a student. What was that one thing that maybe either hit you or made you make a left turn in your life, or really, really was there to say, what was that one teachable moment, everybody? It's always the hard question, right? Sarah, what was it for you?
Oh, wow. My favorite teachable moment that I had as a student. That is a great question. I'm thinking that it would have to be in my AP psychology class. We had like a crazy project. It was completely open ended. And he wanted us to create something that was kind of like a culminating project for the year. And he didn't really put a whole lot of restriction on it. So, what my crazy group and I did, we decided to do kind of like a thought experiment and go to the mall with a video camera with a camcorder and just start acting crazy and recording people's responses to it. Now, in hindsight, that probably wasn't the most ethical thing to do because we didn't know about releases and things of that nature. But, it was definitely a lot of fun. And that really made it stick because then we could like kind of try to see if that matched up with anything that we learned during the school year.
Nice. Tracy, how about yourself? What was the one moment that you can remember that stands out the most as a student?
Unfortunately, I had a lot of moments that stood out and not a lot of them were positive. I guess maybe that's, other than, the one really phenomenal teacher that I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of really not positive moments that had a negative impact. Teachers that contributed to the bullying that myself and others received that kind of drove me to want to protect kids and look out for kids that get bullied now.
And that's important because teachable moment doesn't always have to be positive stuff. Teachable moment could be a life lesson. It could be a lesson learned. It could be something that nobody else was around for, but you had a learning experience that kind of changed or, assisted in the way that you became who you are. What about you?
I actually have to say it's interesting that you say you don't have to be positive because I was in, I believe, 10th grade in AP biology and probably one of the first AP biology classes I'd ever taught. And I was not doing very well in her class. And I don't know whether I was just not digging biology or whether it was the teacher. It was the teacher a sibling had. So I kind of had a little bit of information about her before I went in her class. However, I was just not getting it. And I was not performing my academic. Sad to say, I was not doing academically well in her class, and I was about to fail it. But something about what she said to me has stuck with me, and it caused me to learn more about who I was. And the long story short, when I put my mind to doing something, when I'm absolutely focused on accomplishing something, there's nothing that can stand in the way of that happening. And long story short, ended up passing her class by acing her final exam. Not one question wrong. And it was a mountain mover for me because I really thought that was going to be a goner class. But thanks to her, I was able to pass it. And I'm grateful for that.
Nice. So, Sarah, should we go on to the next questions here?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's another one for y'all. What are those unique things teachers do which create strong relationships and great rapport with their students? So let me see it. I'll go first to Tracy on that.
I would say that first and foremost, we have to listen to our students and show that we are willing to listen and willing to hear them, because too often kids assume that adults are just there to talk at them, like the Charlie Brown wah 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 wah, and then if we're just talking at them, they're not hearing us. But it's important for us to close our mouths and just listen to them. And really that's the same as building a relationship with anyone. It's not just with kids. It's more about the listening than it is about the talking. So yeah, I would say that that's the biggest, most important thing.
All right, awesome. And I see that Dan is here. So Dan, if you could please introduce yourself and say hello to the people.
Hey, yeah, sorry I'm joining a few minutes Bullet. My name is Dan Kreiness. I'm an instructional coach at a middle school in Derby, Connecticut. And I'm glad to be here talking about building relationships with students.
Sweet, great to have you here. So Dan and Jeff will be tag teaming and moderating. I see that Rochelle has also joined us. So Rochelle, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hopefully you can hear me.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay. My name is Rochelle Poth. I teach Spanish and STEAM outside of Pittsburgh. Been teaching for 20 years, having technical difficulties today, but all good.
All right, fantastic to have you here. So I'm going to kick the question over to Dean before going back to Rochelle. So Dan's question too was about the unique things that teachers do, which create strong relationships and great rapport with their students. So what's your answer to that, Dean?
I would like to echo Tracy as well in what she said about listening. I think sometimes we talk a whole lot, but we don't take the time to listen. So I agree there. I also think that in terms of developing a rapport with students is showing them that you are human and real, just like they are human and real, and that you make mistakes. You have lives, right? And so one of the things I know that I've done is showing up at different things that school students are involved in outside of school. Because I can actually come to those things and it's okay, and it totally gives the students the opportunity to see you in a different light. So I think just again showing them that there's a human part of you, and that just like you are able to do and achieve, they can as well.
All right, awesome. And Rochelle, how about you?
Okay, so refresh me on I was logging in, I missed part of the question.
Sure. The question was, what are those unique things teachers do which create strong relationships and great rapport with their students?
Okay, that's what I thought it was. So that's good. I think, I've been teaching 20 years, and for many years I taught the way that I was taught, and I'm pretty sure that that's okay to an extent, but at the same time, nobody says you really have to, well, I don't think anybody says that you really have to start on day one teaching. And for a long time, I was doing that. I just felt compelled, like, oh, we only have so much time. I have to get started with like the Spanish alphabet. And over the past couple of years, I've taken a couple steps back from that and decided, you know what, I need to know these students and these students need to know each other. Even though I teach in a smaller district, in a small school, they don't necessarily know each other. They might walk the same route on the way to school and see each other, but they don't really know each other. So I've spent a lot of time over the past couple of years trying to find different ways for them to, have to mix and mingle. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for them, I think, but I jump right there in the middle with them. And so like this year I did some icebreakers, line up by birthday, walking around the room and talking to the students while they're talking to each other, just to find out interesting things. I did a Google form survey just for the room and shared the results. I even added mine in there as well. And some of them were just so surprised to hear my taste in music or movies, or that I actually go somewhere to shop for clothing. I mean, who would think that teachers do normal things? But showing that you are a real person and having conversations and showing that you have an interest in them and being visible, like Dean said, going to events and showing that you care for more than just, oh, I'm here to teach and I'm leaving at the end of the day, that it goes beyond that. And I think that all of us that are involved with education, especially talking now, I know all of you have some kind of a connection with your students, that you set up a means for them to reach you beyond the school day, because it just doesn't end when we leave. The kids need us throughout any other time. So
Awesome. So I'm going to kick it back over to Jeff.
So we're talking today about, teachers and students, and I always use the word trust when it comes up to it. Like, true students have to trust teachers, teachers have to trust students. But it is coming down to the time where we're going to be going away from each other for the next couple of months, and maybe, students fly away and never come back to that school. So my question to everybody here is, what advice do you usually give your students at the end of the school year to let them know that it's okay that we're leaving? We as teachers are always going to be there. We are always available. If you need to come back next year and talk, we're there. And number two, what advice do you remember your principals may be giving you as we as staff members leave for the summertime months?
I can take this one because I was in a unique position that I've talked about a couple times on EduBatch. I left a district that I had been in for 20 years at the end of last school year, and I had developed some some close relationships with students. It was a high needs district, so there were students that came from situations that kind of ran the gamut. A lot of very low socioeconomic situations, split families, students that were homeless, students that had been in foster situations that didn't work out. So a lot of pain that a lot of students had been through. And they had been abandoned by a lot of adults in their lives. So I just made sure that they knew that there was a way to reach me, whether it was by email, whether it was via Twitter. They had a way to reach me. And for the first, a couple of them reached out over the summer, and as soon as school started and they got in the building and realized I wasn't there, and they were freshmen, so they hadn't had a lot of time in high school to develop a lot of relationships. I heard from them a lot, and then like birds leaving the nest, as you say, they flew away. And that to me was a sign that it kind of was nature working the way nature should work. And they had the chance to leave the nest, build those relationships with other caring and trusted adults in the building. And that was a good feeling. And I did, through colleagues that I remained in touch with, I could still check in on the ones that, were of concern. But they knew that they could find me if they needed me. And then as time went on, they didn't need me as much. And like with parents, it was the normal course of action. So that was pretty neat.
All right, I can add on too. For my students, a lot of the times, well, at least this year, last week, I had some students who will not be continuing with Spanish, and I have some that are transferring schools. But I tell all of them, I said, just because you may not be taking Spanish next year doesn't mean you can't stop by or that like we can't interact. Just if you need something. And I had some students do some different projects, and I said, you might 2 years from now need some help with a project. Don't think for a second that you can't come back just because you might not have been in my class for 2 years. Like I'm still here for you, even if you're not taking my class the next year. And it's nice being in a smaller school because I do get to see these students as they progress. And it was kind of bittersweet last week. I had my seniors graduate and we had this mentor program in my school. So for the past 2 years, I've been working with them more closely in a homeroom, getting to really know them, getting surprised by them and also surprising them as well too. So the best advice I gave them is, have a safe summer. Because there's all kind of things they get involved, they're driving and all of those. So just general things that I like to tell them, but just remember that, you can come back and see me, or if you need something over the summer, you know how to get in touch with me. As far as the principals usually just tell us to make sure to take time for ourselves, do things that we didn't have time for throughout the year, rest, reflect, and then come back recharged in the fall.
Thanks, guys. And we're going to start wrapping up here in just a few minutes. I know that you guys just before or just as I was coming on had shared some of your experiences when it came to relationships that you had built, let's say, with teachers that you had. I was just wondering, as we leave, if you might be able to briefly share and only use as much information as you're willing to share about a relationship that you built up with a student. I realize that some of us have been teaching longer than others, but if you can maybe think back in your career to one special student that you bonded with the most or helped the most, if you could just talk a little bit about that relationship.
I'll jump in really quickly. The student in question is now 22. One of the first years that I started in the classroom, and at the time he was a fifth grader and having challenges at home, and I reached out to his parents and started developing that relationship with him in fifth grade, and it has lasted up until this point, and hopefully continuing going forward. Been a little bit of a rocky road for him, a little bit of a challenge in terms of his decision making and choices that he made. However, it has been a very positive relationship because I've been able to help him sort of go in the positive direction, and I'm officially the uncle now. I'm no longer Mr. Gainey. I am the uncle. So, in a nutshell.
I'll jump in too. I have, there are a few, but there is one student that, you know, you never know down the road what impact you are going to have until they come in front of you and you're like, they say something to you and you think, wow, really? Like just that one little thing. And I've heard so many stories about that over the past couple of weeks, just from colleagues. And a couple of years ago, it's been 2 years ago now, I had a student who was very anti-technology, didn't have a lot of confidence, just kind of kept to herself in the classroom, didn't want to use anything besides paper or PowerPoint. And I encouraged her just to try one little thing. So she tried this presentation. She did a phenomenal job. And I invited her to go to our technology showcase in our state. And she really didn't want to go. She was afraid to go, just very hesitant. And I won't go into other details about how, how her feeling, but just that lack in confidence. Well, we went, she was unbelievable. And it was funny because the technology piece now, flash forward 2 years, she just graduated, going into technology, very confident, and wrote part of a required graduation speech for an English class that was like thanking me and gave that to me. Like brought me to tears. I mean, just that one little encouragement, and you never know. I was just shocked. So it was really great to hear that and experience that and see that that happens a lot too.
Okay, so my story is a student who I had for 3 years in class, and his personality was very much, he was an Eeyore. If we did group work or if he had a seat partner, because in language they have to communicate a lot, he always had, I can't work with this person. There's no way I can work with this person. You have to give me a new partner. So by the third year of hearing this, no matter who I paired him with, I finally said to him, this is 3 years. I think we need to kind of look at the fact that the problem might be that you need to think about being able to work with other people. So he had come from a broken home, but at the same time, and actually it was going on a second broken home, but he was very close to his stepfather, was the situation. So his senior year, when I didn't have him, I had him 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. He decided to come on our trip to Quebec. And I just connected with him. He graduated maybe 4 years ago. Contacted me on Facebook to let me know, after all of our interesting conversations and interesting things that went on. He wanted information about, he was going to go to Quebec again and wanted to know because he had such a great time. He wanted to take his girlfriend there. So it's interesting how you may not think that you connected with a kid because there were a lot of headbutting situations and it might have been a more difficult student, but you keep at it and you make more of a difference than you might have thought originally.
So I just wanted to jump in real quick then right before we wrap up. I'm not going to share a whole story, but I did want to say that I'm going to, I think, put words in everybody's mouth when I say that when it comes to building relationships with students, let's face it, we have plenty of students who come to school because of these kind of relationships, whether they need them from other students or whether they need them from us, the educators, the teachers that work with them in the classroom every day. They're not getting it outside of school, and unfortunately not, but they come to school because of it. And so this is a bit of a tricky time of year as we leave for the summer. So I just want to thank everybody for what they said and the amount of attention that we are giving to this topic, because it can be one that has great success stories, and we know how important it is, but sometimes too, there's a bit of a downside to it, and I don't want to get depressing here, but we're going away for 2 months now, so keep those relationships strong, and if there are things, I guess this is advice for anyone out there watching, if there are things that we can do to continue that throughout the summer and maintain it for when we get back next school year, then that's what we need to be working on.
We certainly have a lot of great things that we've talked about. I want to end today's show the way I end all the TeacherCast shows, which is by saying keep up the great work in your classroom and continue sharing your passions with your students. Thank you, and everybody, and good night, EduMatch.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate this conversation. Thank you to our moderators, Jeff and Dan. Thank you to our panelists, Dean, Tracy, and Rochelle. And can't wait to see you back next week. We are going to be talking about tips for master's and doctoral students. So it's going to be awesome. And we also have a new book that will be dropping during ISTE. So at our ISTE meetup. So check us out on the 25th at Spaghetti Warehouse. So hope to see you there. So definitely check out our website so that you can sign up to be on panel. Would love to have you all next week, and hope everyone has a great one. So thank you so much, and keep rocking on. All right.